Hello and welcome into a brand new episode of the Sports Hub Patriots Podcast. Alex, Barth, Matt Dolloff with you on Monday, January 13th, recording just after 5:30 on the day Mike Vrabel gave his introductory press conference and officially became the 16th head coach of the New England Patriots. That signing was announced, that hiring was announced at about 10:19, I think, on Sunday.
10:19 a.m. I had just gotten home from when we were doing Sunday kickoff, and just like we predicted, I was only off by 12 minutes.
Right, I was going to say you had 10:07, right?
I had 10:07. I was just 12 minutes late, but, perfect timing.
So we somehow just barely have not been on the air since the hiring was made official. We talked a lot about the hiring itself. I'll just let people know this is mostly going to be about kind of what's happened since, especially what Mike Vrabel said today. We talked a lot about the hiring at the time as a likely occurrence on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff on Sunday. If you want to go back and find that conversation, Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, wherever you get your podcast, also on the Sports Hub YouTube page. But just now that it's done, Matt, your thoughts on the hiring itself of Mike Vrabel?
It's the right move. It's what the Patriots needed right now. They needed a guy that has experience in the role, can sort of reestablish the whole culture, can bring them back to, the type of program that they need, type of program that they had when they won, the type of program that pretty much any NFL team that wins a lot of games is going to have to need. And I said it on Sunday Kickoff. I've said it to you in multiple podcasts before about he's good at the head coach stuff. Like the head coach, I don't necessarily ascribe to the theory that you have to have an offensive guru as your head coach. You don't have to have that guy. Like we're just look at the divisional round. The divisional round is going to be half offensive coaches, half non-offensive coaches. I don't think that's necessarily the factor to having a good head coach. Like ideally you have a guy like Sean McVay, but like what you need a head coach to be is a guy that can prepare the team or start over here, build a culture, get everybody, pull it in the same direction, manage the locker room. And then during a game week, you prepare the team. You have a smart, tough team. You put that together. And then on Sunday, you manage the game. And then we know that that's going to come up in these tightly contested games. Like the Patriots have been bad at those over the last two, even going back to Bill Belichick, they're 11-18 in games decided by 7 points or fewer over the last 3 seasons. And you go to that video that Taylor Lewan posted the other day about the Mike Vrabel hire, like you're going to start winning some of those games because that's what Mike Vrabel is good at. He's going to be good on Sundays. He's going to be a guy, he's going to manage the timeouts well. He's going to manage situations well. He's going to have them situationally sound. He's going to have them prepared. He's going to have good game plans. He's going to have all of that stuff. That can only get you so far though, right? So like you could have the best coaching in the world, but if you have bad players, you're going to be an average team. And so it's really just the first step. It's only step one for the Patriots, but this is the direction they had to go. And this is what I think Vrabel is going to bring to the table. He's going to make them a well-coached team again. And then we still got to figure out everything else, but at least they're going to be well-coached again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was the right hire for a lot of the reasons you just said. And that gets me to today and my big takeaway from today. And I wrote about this on 985thesportshub.com. We both have thoughts up now, more coming on the way. There's a lot to get to. Vrabel spoke for 40 minutes, just about 40 minutes today at Gillette Stadium. Mike Vrabel is the right guy because before you can get to any of the intricacies of, wrinkles in the offense, wrinkles in the defense, things like that, they have no program. I said this with Matt McCarthy and Leroy Irvin on Sunday. I struggle to even say that they had a bad program last year because I feel like in order to say that, I have to be able to identify what the program was.
No, program gets an F. You get an F if you don't show up to class.
Right.
This is like they didn't show up to class.
It's almost like an incomplete.
Even bad. They just weren't there.
So and this word, it got talked about a lot today. We're going to hear about it a lot in the coming weeks. If you haven't heard me talk about this yet, football program. Like when we talk about the program for a team, it is the philosophical concepts, the core beliefs, the pillars on which you build your entire operation. It's maybe certain kind of traits you're looking for in people, in players, the way you're going to operate when it comes to practice, when it comes to scouting, like the things you can fall back on. And the idea is when you have a strong program, Monday through Saturday are going to make Sunday easier. January through April are going to make the draft easier, right? And that builds. It's the day-to-day, month-to-month, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year philosophies in which you operate. And Mike Vrabel talked a lot about his program today. And a lot of people probably hear this and just roll their eyes at like the football guy terminology, but there's something to it. Talking about we're going to move from the entitlement on our football team, talking about the non-negotiables being effort, strong finishing, playing physically, things like that. Talking about kind of what they're looking for from a front office perspective in terms of the kind of players they want to bring in terms of the kind of things they want to do. He didn't go as much into it defensively, which kind of surprised me. But on offense, we heard about being an efficient offense, being able to protect the quarterback was something that he emphasized multiple times. These are core concepts for the program. And some of this is big picture. How are you going to protect the quarterback? We didn't really get into those details. I wouldn't expect him to get into those details, but there is a direction. There is with Mike Vrabel at the front, he's going to get everybody pointed and moving towards the same goal. And it's not going to be sort of a free for all. Whereas last year, it just felt like they were kind of going as it happened, right? Well, we're going to draft Caden Wallace. There's a run on tackles. We missed out. We'll draft Caden Wallace, who was a right tackle. We'll try to make him a left tackle, but we're also going to try to make Chooks Okorafor, who is a right tackle, left tackle. And we have to move Caden back to right tackle, and Chooks has to get better. There's going to be a plan. That's essentially what the program is. It's a big picture blueprint plan. And Vrabel preached that today. That was the majority of what he talked about. And if you're a Patriots fan, now look, saying all this is one thing. They have to execute it. Obviously, I'm not saying that you just say it and it becomes true. But talking about that, like the plan he laid out makes a lot of sense. If you're a Patriots fan, you should at least feel good about the direction of the organization today. We'll see on the execution. Not, don't book your playoff tickets yet or anything. But the direction he laid out feels, I don't know because these are kind of contradictory words. So I don't know, maybe you can kind of say this better than I'm trying to say it. The plan feels a good balance of realistic and ambitious. And we'll see if they can make it work. But I liked what he talked about in terms of the program and the plan.
Yeah, well, the realistic part is that like he said, like, I can't set a timeline on where we're at. I can't guarantee we're going to go back to the Super Bowl next year. And he's not. Well, he's not setting any of these grand goals that aren't going to be attainable. Like he's basically saying, I don't know where we're at right now. Like we got a long way to go. And so,
he did say where they're at, and I thought that was really good when he kind of said like the first step, they need to be able to take advantage of bad football, and it's a great point. When other teams screwed up this year, they couldn't take advantage of it. And at a base level, you have to be able to do that. You can't be, if two teams are screwing up, you can't be the worst of the two bad teams. And he also, he talked about the goals being AFC Championship, home playoff games, championship contender, all of that, which, you get there eventually. For a year one goal, just don't be the worst of the bad teams. Like, I know that kind of sounds dumb, but they've been that for the last 2 years. Doesn't that kind of feel like a good goal for year one? So
yeah, well, no, they're the bad football. They're the teams that's being taken advantage of with their bad football. They gotta cut that out. Like and they sunk to a new level. I think like people might sort of lose sight of it because of how bad it got with Gerard Mayo. Even the last couple of years under Bill Belichick, like Bill Belichick wasn't surrounding himself with good enough assistants. There was a talent drain underneath him that I talked about for a long time, losing Josh McDaniels, Brian Flores, and Dante Scarnecchia, guys going out the door that I thought meant a lot. And like you couldn't take away from those guys and give Bill Belichick all the credit. Like there was a talent drain on the coaching staff too, and they started to lapse into some bad football themselves, even under Bill Belichick. And obviously it was kicked into hyper gear under Gerard Mayo. It was the worst coached football team I've ever seen, I think, in New England anyway. So yeah, they need to, this is the whole thing is like, I get that people want Ben Johnson. They want to have the high flying offense and all that. Let's get back to a level of competency and respectability. Then maybe we can worry about having the high flying offense, and they're going to need players to do that too. Like they have such a long way to go, Barth. But yeah, like I'm not even sure I feel good about the overall direction of the organization. Like you were saying, I feel good about the direction of the coaching staff. I think they are going to be well coached. They're going to play, if not less, they're going to almost totally eliminate a lot of the bad stuff we saw this past year. They're going to take fewer penalties. They're going to have good game plans. The situational stuff is going to be sound. So like, I have confidence that they're going to be good at all that stuff. And I have confidence that Mike Vrabel is going to bring in good assistants, guys that he trusts and guys that are going to, do a good job under him. And those guys are all going to be pulling in the same direction. the Elliott Wolf stuff, like we can get to it later if you want. We don't have to get to it right now, but like the front office stuff, like that sort of has me uneasy. And I'm not totally sure about the direction of the overall organization, but I feel good about the direction of just the coaching staff. But still, that's just one step.
Well, I think the idea is that the coaching staff and Vrabel is kind of this overseer, set the tone for everybody else in the organization. And it might be the coaching staff first, right? It's not going to happen at once, obviously, but the coaching staff's at a certain level. Okay, well, now the front office has to meet that, or there's going to be changes, and we can use that to jump into the Elliott Wolf stuff. So Vrabel mentioned Elliott Wolf quite a few times today, mentioned working with him in a personnel sense. At the same time, Ryan Cowden, who was a former staffer in Tennessee, front office staffer in Tennessee with Vrabel. He's been with the Giants the last few years. He was hired today by the Patriots, according to multiple reports. And those reports framed it as him working under Elliott Wolf. So we know Elliott Wolf remains in a significant role. Does he have final say? Does Vrabel? Vrabel was asked that today. He didn't answer it. So that remains kind of open-ended. But the way I look at it, Mike Vrabel's not going to put up with lesser. He just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to get handed. I mean, to keep going back to the offensive line, that's going to get handed a third-round right tackle and a career fringe starting right tackle and say, here are your left tackle options. He doesn't seem like God's going to put up with that. He now has his guy there in the front office, kind of right behind Elliott Wolf. You sent the meme to the group chat earlier, right? I forget who the wrestler is in the front.
It's,
you know what I'm talking about, right?
It's a famous meme of people that don't even know wrestling.
Yeah.
It's AJ Styles thinking he's in a good position. He's in good shape, but then there's the Undertaker right behind him, ready to just kill him.
So
obviously Ryan Cowden represents the Undertaker, and Elliott Wolf is AJ Styles thinking he's sitting pretty. But I would not feel good if I were Elliott Wolf. The thing is about the reporting is that there's no couching like there was with Gerard Mayo before he got fired. They're not saying Elliott Wolf is in charge for now, or they think they're moving forward with Elliott Wolf. It feels kind of definitive that Elliott Wolf is staying on. But
does it feel like there's significant pressure on him?
Something like that, yeah. I think there's Albert Breer tweeted something like he's going to have a position along the lines of VP of player personnel. So it's like him and Elliott Wolf might be, 1 and 1A rather than 1 and 2. And so I wonder how that's going to work. And I think the original report, I forget who it was. I apologize. The line was the dynamics will be interesting. That to me is ominous. That's an interesting use of the word interesting in that report. I don't love it if this is going to be the setup because and Vrabel had a weird line today where maybe this is just semantics, but he said something along the lines of we don't always want to be on the same page. And when I heard that, I was like, no, you kind of do want to be on the same page. But he later said something about a shared vision. And so I was like, okay, well, that to me is being on the same page. So
I kind of took that we don't want to be on the same page thing as him basically being I'm not going to surround myself with yes men.
Yeah. He wants diversity of ideas. So,
right. And I don't know, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Clearly, I'm a fan of the hire, but I kind of took that as he's not just going to hire a bunch of people who tell him what he wants to hear. He's going to hire people that give their opinion. And then I think the idea is we don't all want to be at the same page at the start. And then you discuss the ideas and you come to that, that conclusion. And we'll see what his final say.
I wonder if this is something he learned from Tennessee where maybe he tried to have a little too much control and do a little too much as the head coach. And maybe now he realizes I should surround myself with good people and trust them and be a little more collaborative. And I get it. The word collaborative is kind of a 4-letter word around here these days because of the way that whole thing is gone.
Well, I think he said accountability. I think he talked about accountability more than collaboration. So he's good in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. But I get it. Someone's going to have final say. I feel like it feels like a handicap match right now between Vrabel and Cowden versus Wolf 2-on-1. And so I get it. You're not going to have all 50 people in the front office all agreeing at the same time that yes, we should take Abdul Carter with the 4th pick. You're going to have a Kelvin Banks person in there. You're probably going to have a Ted McMillan person in there. But someone's going to have to make that final decision. And just the hope is that this doesn't breed more dysfunction because I'm really concerned about the current setup the way it is right now. I don't know. Hopefully there's some kind of change or there's some kind of clear direction there. But I just hope that they sort of clarify that for us going forward because there wasn't really much clarification today.
Well, I think, look, it's pretty and maybe this isn't the best setup, but just kind of the way I read it through everything that's been reported. If Elliott Wolf can't deliver Mike Vrabel what he needs, Elliott Wolf won't be the guy in charge of the front office. Now, that essentially gives Mike Vrabel final say. Maybe it's Elliott Wolf running the front office, but he's then reporting everything back to Mike Vrabel, who has final say. That's basically the Belichick setup. That's basically how it was under Bill with Dave Ziegler, Nick Caserio, Matt Groh at the end there, which was those guys were kind of doing all the legwork, going to Bill, and then sort of present. And Bill obviously did his own research and looked into it as well. But, that was kind of the setup there. But it feels like if Elliott Wolf can't deliver, like Vrabel has his guy now in a position. And I think the one thing where he definitely put Elliott Wolf on the clock is when he was asked about Drake Maye. I love the culture stuff was good. Vrabel's best answers today were probably about Drake Maye, which
I agree.
For all the people who were worried, defensive coach, quarterback, he did a lot today to kind of show that he's on the right page there. Basic answer. The first one was what are your beliefs in developing a young quarterback? And he said, surround them with great people, surround them with great talent, something like that. Correct answer.
Put great people around him.
Put great people around him. Yep. Good coach. So that to me means good coaches and good players, which is what they need to do. You can't ask Drake Maye to do this all himself. So we'll see what happens with the offensive coordinator. But I think that refers to players as well. And then along those lines, he was asked about the fourth pick and just the assets available as a whole this offseason. And he went right to that offensive line and said, with how good pass rushers are around the league, if you can't protect your quarterback, it's the easiest way to lose a football game. And he hammered wanting to improve the offensive line. Knock the wide receivers all you want. It's totally fair. I don't know that there was a bigger miss from Elliott Wolf this past offseason than the job he did with the offensive line. I would argue that was worse than what happened with the receivers. And
it was, yeah.
I know some people disagree. I don't care. The offensive
at least
line
at least they were getting something out of Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas by the end of the year. The offensive line never really came together.
So the offensive line, and really for the last few years, has been a mess here. And a lot of that is because of the personnel department, I think more so than the coaching. Mike Vrabel comes right out and says, we're going to invest in the offensive line. We need to have a better offensive line, not just better. We need to have a good offensive line. We need to protect the quarterback. So we're going to find out right away if Elliott Wolf can adjust, if Elliott Wolf can learn from last year and can make the changes he needs to make, because Vrabel said that with some intensity. I'm going to get my hopes up. Shame on me. I'm going to do it. I expect them to actually make the investments they need to make in the offensive line this year. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe more so than receiver. I think that's their top focus. Last year, Elliott Wolf talked obviously quarterback was the top focus, but beyond that, you could kind of read the tea leaves. And he was talking about receivers more than offensive linemen. Vrabel comes out today. We need to protect Drake Maye. Talked about the defensive line too, but we need to protect Drake Maye. I think that's a message to Elliott Wolf and the rest of the front office. You guys did not do a good enough job. You guys did not do a good enough job of this last year. That has to change this year.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a very good message, and that was definitely his best comment of the press conference. I agree with you there. And I just love that how much he just acknowledged the importance of the quarterback position. You got Bill Belichick might have said something, we got a lot of good players. So I have a lot of guys I have to develop. Drake Maye is just 1 of 53. No, he's the quarterback. He's the most important guy. He's the leader. And so it's no, I have to develop him as the leader of the team. And I love that he went into stuff that I would expect a head coach to be good at in developing a quarterback, which is in-game management, decision-making, situational awareness. And that's important for any quarterback, but that's important especially for Drake Maye, because we know he's got a great arm. We know he can run. The physical abilities are obvious. Yes, put good coaches around him to hopefully, continue to progress with his development. Hopefully his development doesn't stagnate or regress under whoever his new coaches are going to be, assuming he gets all new coaches. So hopefully you continue to progress him in terms of the mechanics and reading defenses and calling plays. And so, yes, your offensive coaching staff can handle that stuff. Mike Vrabel needs to drill into Drake Maye's head. Do not chuck the ball up on 1st and 10 into triple coverage and overtime. Do not try to do too much with the football. Do not try to stiff arm a pass rusher while holding the ball with one hand, because you're going to fumble, and that's stupid. So he talked about ball security a little bit. He talked about that, I think, with Zoe and Beetle too. Like, we need to protect the ball. And so he's going to drill into Drake Maye's head. You can't turn the ball over. You have to protect the ball. You have to make good decisions. You have to know what the situation is and know what the right play is at the right time. I like that he said we want to be aggressive but not reckless. Like, he knows that we can't just protect the ball and run the ball the whole game and win. Like, he knows we have to push the ball down the field and make plays. But you can't be reckless with the ball. Like, that's what Drake Maye was. Like, he makes a lot of plays, but he's also reckless with the ball. And so if Vrabel could get the turnovers out of him and turn him into a good decision maker, and, he's shown good leadership qualities already, Drake Maye has, and if he can accentuate those qualities and instill that kind of confidence in him where he can grow as a leader and improve upon the things that he's already good at and cut out the turnovers, Drake Maye could be an elite guy. That's the ceiling is limitless if you start to do that. And so I love what Vrabel was saying about Drake Maye. And hopefully, it's one thing to say it, he's got to go out and do it. But that's the thing that Vrabel needs to be good at, is the in-game stuff, the situational stuff. They all need to be situationally sound, and the quarterback needs to be at the forefront of that. And hopefully it works out.
Well, drilling that with the quarterback, that kind of takes me back to, Bill and Brady used to have, I think, Tuesday mornings, right? Their Tuesday morning meetings. So maybe that returns. I also think it's interesting that Vrabel talked about how much he learned last year in Cleveland. He spent time on the offensive side of the ball. He was not a defensive coach in Cleveland. So he said he mostly worked with the offensive line and tight ends, but being able to kind of teach some defensive philosophy to Drake Maye. And
so did you say Houston, or?
I meant to say Cleveland. Did I say Houston? I thought I said Cleveland.
I'm sorry. I was thinking Houston because it wasn't he defensive coach in Houston.
He was
this past season that he worked on offenses, you're saying?
Yeah, this past season in Cleveland. If I said Houston, I apologize. This past season in Cleveland, he talked about working with the offense, so brings kind of some of that perspective. I'm just looking at the chat here. I will bring this up. He said this too. I think he said this on 98.5. I don't think he said this in the
he said I want to be. He said I want to be violent on special teams.
Yeah.
Brendan Schooler is going to murder someone.
I love, like not just, not everybody should go listen to the interview with Zolak and Bertrand too. There's a lot of good stuff in there. That was one thing that stood out, talking about wanting to be violent on special teams. Another thing that stood out, he talked about kind of what he learned in Cleveland, using analytics as it applies to the draft and in player acquisition. People who know me know I'm not a big analytics guy. In the way that he used it can mean a number of things. If he's talking about like player tracking, right, miles per hour, things like that, great. I hope they don't go too far to EPA and DVOA and become one of those teams, but definitely seems like he took a lot away from Cleveland. He also talked about, just to kind of discuss some of the other interviews he did today, he went on Patriots Unfiltered, and he got in a little back and forth with Evan Lazar about the philosophies, different philosophies of a run game. I don't know if you've seen this clip yet, Dolloff.
I saw Evan Lazar standing off in the corner with a little.
Yeah, they made Evan.
I was cracking me up.
He couldn't stand too close. They didn't want him to, jump on Vrabel. But on him. At a certain point, so they're talking about run game philosophies, and he asks Evan, what's your favorite run? Evan says power, and he goes, well, we'll have to get a fullback to do that. And then he kind of brought up, maybe we'll find somebody to do that. So maybe the fullback coming back to New England.
Evan just lurking in the corner in the shadows. Asking him questions about the power run game. So that was cracking me up. Love Evan. There was
that element of it as well. One last thing I want to touch on. Obviously, it's hard not to compare today to where we were a year ago with the Gerard Mayo introductory press conference, right? And one of the big takeaways from that day were how much the team sort of seemed to distance itself and almost take digs at Bill Belichick. I thought Vrabel hit the exact right note where he said, look, I played for Bill, played for a lot of great coaches, and I'm paraphrasing here because he had mentioned Bill Cowher too and some others. Like, I played for Bill, played for a lot of great coaches, learned a lot from them. It's going to be a factor in what I do, but I'm me, and I'm going to run my program. He talked about, I think the best way to sum it up, he talked about the banners, and he goes, those banners won't help us on the field, but they're a good reminder of what it takes from all of us to play at a championship level. So it's felt like at times this team has either steered too far into trying to recapture the pass, and then they'll bounce to completely ignoring the pass, and the extremes back and forth. That to me was the right tone. Hey, It's not the dynasty anymore. Let's not pretend it is. But let's also not act like there aren't lessons to be learned there either. I think that's the right tone, the right way to handle it, because with a lot of people with Vrabel's hire, and I get it, people saying, hey, they're trying to recapture the glory days. They need to move on, all that. I get that. It's a fair critique. I thought Vrabel hit the right note in response to that, basically saying, like, it's not those days anymore. We need to do our own work, but we can kind of use that as a blueprint to remind us what we need to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's what stood out to me when he talked to Zoe and Beadle earlier today, too, is that, well, look, I'm not the same guy as Bill Belichick, but
Right.
I want to have a lot of those same core tenets that made us a winning football team. And he got into all the stuff that we've already talked about, just being disciplined, prepared, good in situational stuff, third down, red zone. On special teams, we want to be violent. We want to commit capital murder on special teams. Offense, we want to protect the ball. We want to be aggressive, but not it's all those things that, yes, they were core hallmarks of the Bill Belichick coach teams. It's just like, which I think is sort of, yes, having Tom Brady was sort of the key to it all, but you put the extremely well coached and prepared team on top of that, and like that's kind of why they were unstoppable. Was the combination of those things. And so, yes, he's going to bring all those coaching qualities, but he's not going to take the exact same approach as Bill Belichick. And he actually had a comment during the press conference, which I think might have sort of been one of the more nondescript comments that didn't really stand out to most people, I don't think, but it stood out to me, is that he talked about just an individual scenario where if a guy is late, or if he shows up and he looks like he's not feeling right, or he's not in a good state of mind, that he's going to give them the time and the space they need to get right. And he's going to talk to him and say, look, I can't have you pouting all day throughout practice. I'd rather have you go home for an hour or stay in for an hour and get right and then come out and practice with us, because I can't have you moping around and being all unfocused during practice.
He basically said, I'd rather give you the 40 minutes to deal with what you need to deal with, as opposed to have you burn a whole 7-hour day where you're not focused.
Exactly. And I think not to pin this all on Bill Belichick, but I feel Bill, or an older school coach, might have looked at that guy and said, suck it up, get out on the practice field. What are you crying about? And I feel like that's just the wrong approach to take. And I feel like he's taking, that's a better approach to take, I think, with at least this current, the new generation of players, at least. I thought maybe Gerard Mayo was going to be better at that sort of thing, but maybe I think he went a little too far in that direction. I think Vrabel is going to have a good,
in the other direction you're talking about.
In the other direction. Yeah. Vrabel is going to have a good balance, I think, of discipline and, making sure guys are in the right state of mind and having a good attitude. And I don't know if you've gone back and watched any of the stuff, Barth, but there are old training camp videos of him with the Titans, and he doesn't come across as much of a hard ass as he does in his press conference dealing with us and going back and forth with reporters. He has, I think, generally I'm going to lift you up kind of attitude, and we're going to do this together, that sort of thing. Not overly positive, but I think he does seem to strike the right note with players. And so I think that's why people have raved about him as a leader and how he works behind the scenes. And yes, he can be tough at times, but I think he knows when to pick his spots. And I think he's going to connect with players in a way. And he also brought up how, look, I started off as a special teamer. I developed into a good player and won championships. And then I was traded away as the older veteran. So he says, no matter what kind of player is in the room, I can find a way to relate to that guy. And so I think that's all good. I think that he's going to be able to relate to players even better than Gerard Mayo could, and especially with the experience that he has. And so, yeah, I think I feel good about that particular aspect of Vrabel.
Yeah, I'm trying to find here in the transcript. He said something along the lines of, we're going to treat, the team is going to treat players the way the players treat the team. Here it is. We want to treat every single player the same way they treat the team. We want to treat every employee the same way they treat the team. If they care about the team and come here with a great attitude and willingness to work and help the team, I've asked Robert to do everything we can for them, to support them and their families. That's the type of environment I want to build. So
get some more daycares in here, Robert, please.
Well, it's basically you get in what you get out what you put in, right? Yeah. If you show up, you do your job, you're accountable. Everybody else is going to be accountable to you. And that's another one of those, culture cornerstones that we talk about. that I think will help because to go back to the Jelani Tavai stuff, right? And to go back to some of the other stuff we heard about at the end of the year, players showing up to meetings late and things like that. I'm not just talking about the fans. I'm talking about the organization as a whole, even, their own teammates. Didn't feel like a lot of guys in that locker room respected the program. They may have respected Gerard Mayo, but I don't know how many of them respected the program and respected the team. And that's kind of something else Vrabel sort of talked about where, he's going to have respect for the players and he wants them to respect him, but it doesn't mean they're all going to be best friends. Right. So it's more about respecting the program, respecting the process that he represents, as opposed to him specifically, which that was a big Belichick thing. You hear former Belichick players talk about that all the time. I know Rodney Harrison has given great answers on this, where it's like, he hated playing for Belichick in the moment because of how hard it was, but he understood why they were doing what they're doing. And in the time, and especially retroactively looks back on it and is like, yeah, I understand why he pushed us so hard. So I think that's kind of what Vrabel's going for.
And that was the problem with Mayo, is that like the substitute teacher thing, right? When people talk about substitute teacher,
right.
The players liked him. I mean, he got them to play hard, but they didn't necessarily respect him. He didn't command respect the way you kind of need to. And like, you have to command respect in order to get guys to really execute your vision. And the problem with Mayo is A, he didn't have a vision, and B, like, he could get you out there and playing hard, but you were just so ill prepared. And like, there was such a dysfunction and disorganization going on during the week that it showed up on Sundays. And so if there's discipline, organization, everyone's flowing in the same direction. Everyone had, like you said, has respect for the program. And like, yes, I respect you. I respect the program. I respect the team. Like, you're going to yield better results on Sunday. And like, yeah, like Gerard Mayo, yes, he talked about guys being accountable for themselves. Like, that was his philosophy. But again, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. The question is, once it starts to go bad, then what happens? And we saw what happened with the Mayo way. Once it starts to go bad, guys start to point fingers. They start to blame the fans. So they start to they start to have the absolute wrong attitude about it. And that was another thing that Vrabel mentioned, I think, early on in the press conference, where it's like you start to find out what kind of team you have, what kind of culture you have when you're at your low point, not necessarily when you're winning and you're flying high. What's it like when you hit a low point and things start to go wrong? Then we see what you're made of. And so that's another thing that I'm confident about in Vrabel, is that like, if they lose a game or two, like, how does he right the ship? Like, I feel like he has a good chance to right the ship, at least a much better chance to right the ship than Gerard Mayo ever did.
So yeah, that's what it is. It's all about the program. Everybody go back, watch Sam Winters, James Conn, Halle Berry, Omar Epps, right? Big program people here in New England now. But no, that's what today was. They'll have to follow through. He said all the right things. Doesn't matter if they don't follow through. But I guess the difference is, and probably should have mentioned this earlier, like, he's done it. He's done it. He did it in Tennessee. And you look at what went wrong in Tennessee, it wasn't necessarily his missteps directly. It was the trade of A.J. Brown. And then I don't think the owners were super thrilled with, frankly, how happy he was to be back in New England when he was inducted into the Team Hall of Fame. You don't have to worry about that here. No other team's inducting him into their Hall of Fame. I doubt the Titans are, right? Probably not the Chiefs or the Steelers. So he's shown he can do this before. He has to do it again, but he's shown he can do it before. Anything else here before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I like that he talked a lot about, improving in the trenches, both sides of the ball. I think that's very important. I think you look at even the teams that are left in the league in the playoffs, so the top teams in the league, like, yes, you have to have a quarterback, but like, you look at the Bills, the Ravens, the Lions,
that
the
Ravens
Eagles.
Offensive line the other night, 13 run plays in a row for a touchdown.
Yeah, but both sides of the ball, these teams, both sides of the ball, they're great on both lines. And like, I think that's just, look, it's not necessarily the reason we watch the games, but it's like your backbone. It's like it's essential to having success. You can't have a quarterback just running for his life around every play and not have protection. And then you can't, like we saw with the Patriots this year, you have to be able to disrupt the other team's quarterback. And I love that he brought that up as sort of the hallmarks of the league. Like, that's really the name of the game. And that's why I think you could see a Final Four of like Lions, Eagles, Bills, and probably the Chiefs. But like, all those teams, like, but they're the Chiefs are just Mahomes basically. But like, for the most part, you got to be.
The Chiefs have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Creed Humphrey was an All-Pro center. Yeah. Joe Tooney's been one of the best linemen in football.
They just had issues at tackle, I guess. But yeah, like they they've had a good offensive line. I don't want to take away from them. They have Chris Jones, So yeah, like you got to be good in the trenches, both sides of the ball. The Patriots were bad on the trenches on both sides of the ball. That's why it's one of the main reasons they were one of the worst teams in the league, even though they had a good young quarterback. And so I'm glad that he is going to instill that as a focus, and hopefully that's part of their shared vision, that they know they have to be better on the line. And hopefully he looks at Elliott Wolf and it's like, please get me an actual left tackle. Can we please do that at least? Let's start.
I don't think it's please. I think it's get me a left tackle.
Yeah, no, please. I'm not asking. I'm telling.
Right. It's not a request. It's a demand. So we'll see. We'll see as the offseason goes on what moves are next. Obviously, there's the question of staffing, offense coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach is going to be an interesting one. Tyler Hughes was there today, but a lot of people pointed out that Mac Jones was at Sherrod Mayo's press conference last year. So we'll see what happens there. We'll have more on it as we go on 98.5thesportshub.com. Probably next podcast. Again, these won't be, it worked out that it's been every Monday again. Today was Monday, but they'll kind of be as we get news in the off season. So probably when we have at least close to a completed staff, if not a completed staff, we'll get on, react to that, and then the personnel part to come. So in the meantime, be sure to subscribe to the Sports Hub YouTube page and Sports Hub Patriots audio feed, wherever you get your podcasts. You get this. Also, interviews players and coaches do at the station can be found there as well. So until the next time, for Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in, and talk to you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.